In the distant future, humanity has achieved interstellar travel, spreading its colonies across the stars. But not all spacefaring races are welcoming. Deep in the uncharted regions of the galaxy lies a mysterious world, Calypsis, a planet once teeming with life, now a desolate wasteland inhabited by the remaining mutated humans and a race of ancient, green-skinned beings known as the Elderly. These beings possess an enigmatic power over nature, controlling the very essence of life and death. Commander Varia, a resilient and fearless captain of the starship Axiom, is dispatched on a mission to Calypsis, along with her diverse crew, to investigate the sudden resurgence of energy signals emanating from the planet. These signals haven't been detected for centuries, sparking fear of an old myth, the rift beyond, a dimensional breach that could unravel the universe itself. As Axiom descends through Calypsis' toxic atmosphere, Varia feels a strange pull, a calling that seems almost personal. The Axiom landed amidst the barren plains of Calypsis, the sky tinged with a toxic green glow. Commander Varia and her crew exited the ship, their suits designed to withstand the harsh environment. The planet's silence was unnerving. No wind, no life, just the faint hum of energy pulsing beneath the surface. Varia scanned the landscape with her visor, her thoughts clouded by an inexplicable sense of déjà vu. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had been here before, though she had never set foot on this world. The others felt it too, an eerie connection to the land, as though the planet itself remembered them. "Commander," said Drace, her second-in-command, pointing to a cluster of ancient structures in the distance. "That's where the energy readings are strongest. We should investigate." Varia nodded, her hand instinctively tightening on her plasma rifle. "Let's move. Stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with." The crew advanced toward the ruins, their steps echoing on the cracked, lifeless ground. The architecture was unlike anything they had ever seen. Massive stone pillars covered in strange symbols, pulsating with a faint green light. The closer they got, the stronger Varia's sense of familiarity grew. As they reached the entrance, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, with deep emerald skin that shimmered in the low light. His eyes, glowing with ancient knowledge, locked onto Varia's. "Welcome home," the Elderly whispered. The crew immediately raised their weapons, but Varia hesitated. Something in the Elderly's words struck her like a forgotten memory resurfacing. "Who are you?" Varia asked, stepping forward, her voice steady despite the unease creeping through her veins. "I am Kaelen," he replied, his voice as ancient as the ruins surrounding them. "The last of the Elderly, protectors of this world and the gateway between dimensions." "You're not real," Drace muttered under his breath, eyes darting around. "This planet is supposed to be deserted." Kaelen turned his gaze toward Drace, a slow smile forming. "Not everything that exists can be seen by mortal eyes. You came here because Calypsis called you. It remembers you as you remember it." Varia frowned. "I don't understand. We came here to investigate an energy signal. We're not connected to this place." "Not yet," Kaelen said cryptically. "But you will be. The rift beyond. It is awakening." At the mention of the rift, a sharp pain shot through Varia's mind. Flashes of another life, a life not her own, filled her thoughts. A great war, the fall of civilizations, and her, standing at the center of it all alongside Kaelen. Varia staggered, clutching her head. "What is this? What are you doing to me?" Kaelen's expression softened. "You are part of a legacy older than humanity itself. The rift beyond, the power to bridge worlds, flows through you." Before Varia could respond, the ground trembled violently. The ruins lit up with a blinding green light, and the air around them crackled with energy. Something was coming. The crew scrambled as the earthquake intensified, rocks and debris falling from the ancient structures. Kaelen remained unfazed, his eyes glowing brighter as the energy built around them. "Commander, we need to get out of here," Drace shouted over the roar of the shifting earth. But Varia stood frozen, her gaze locked on the center of the ruin where the light was brightest. A massive crack appeared in the ground, and from it emerged a swirling vortex of green and black, The rift. It's real, Varia whispered, her heart pounding. The rift beyond, it's real. Kaelen stepped forward, his voice low but commanding. It is the key to everything. Through the rift we can restore balance to the universe, or destroy it. As the rift expanded, strange figures began to emerge. Mutated creatures, their forms twisted by the energy of the breach. They were once human, but now they were something else entirely. Their eyes glowed with a predatory hunger, and they moved with unnatural speed. "Mutants!" shouted one of the crew. Weapons ready. The team opened fire, but the creatures were relentless, charging toward them with terrifying force. Varia fired her plasma rifle, taking down 2 of the mutants, but more kept coming. The situation was spiraling out of control. "We need to fall back," Drace shouted, firing at the oncoming horde. "We can't hold them off." "No," Varia said, her eyes narrowing. "We can't run. This is what we came for. We stop the rift or it consumes everything." Kaelen stepped beside her, his power radiating. "You are right, Varia. But to stop the rift, you must unlock the power within yourself. Only you can close it." Varia didn't understand. The power? Within her? She had spent her entire life as a soldier, not as some cosmic savior. But there was no time to question. The rift was expanding, and the mutated creatures were overwhelming the crew. Kaelen moved toward the rift, chanting in a language Varia couldn't understand. The air vibrated with his words, and the mutants recoiled, as if the very sound repelled them. But it wasn't enough. Varia felt the pull again, stronger now, like a gravitational force drawing her toward the vortex. Her vision blurred, and once again, the flashes of another life came flooding in. Her standing at the head of an army, leading the Elderly against a tide of destruction. She had been here before. She had fought this battle before, and she had lost. But this time it would be different. Summoning all her strength, Varia stepped forward, her body glowing with the same green light as the rift. The crew watched in shock as she walked toward the vortex, unafraid. The creatures stopped in their tracks, sensing the change in her. Kaelen watched with approval. "You are the key, the last hope of both worlds." With a deep breath, Varia raised her hands toward the rift. The energy pulsed through her, wild and uncontrollable, but she didn't resist. She let it flow, merging with the power of the rift itself. As the energy of the rift surged around her, Varia felt her body become one with the force of the vortex. Memories that weren't her own flooded her mind. Centuries of battles fought by the Elderly, their ancient race's connection to the cosmic rift that bridged worlds. Kaelen's voice echoed in her thoughts, guiding her through the overwhelming tide of power that threatened to consume her. "Focus, Varia," his voice was calm, yet commanding. "The rift holds the power of creation and destruction. You must wield it, not let it control you." Her skin glowed with the same eerie green as the rift, and she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet as the energy coursed through her veins. Her connection to the ancient Elderly grew stronger with every moment, but with it came the weight of their ancient burden, one she hadn't been prepared to carry. Suddenly, the glowing light intensified, and she was pulled into a vision. She stood on a battlefield, not in the desolate ruins of Calypsis, but a lush, vibrant world she had never seen before. Thousands of Elderly warriors surrounded her, their weapons raised as they prepared for an inevitable war. At the front of the army was Kaelen, but not the version she knew. This Kaelen was a leader, dressed in ceremonial armor, his eyes burning with determination. He looked at her, not as an ally, but as a general commanding a powerful weapon. "You are the vessel of the rift," he said in the vision, his voice distant but powerful. "You are the one who will decide the fate of all worlds." Before she could respond, the vision shattered, and Varia was pulled back into reality. The rift was still expanding, but now the mutated creatures seemed to hesitate, as if sensing the change within her. Kaelen stood beside her, his eyes glowing with an ancient light. "You saw it, didn't you?" Kaelen asked, his voice low. "The truth of what you are." Varia nodded, though her mind was still reeling from the revelation. But why me? I'm not elderly. I'm just a soldier. Kaelen placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression softening. The rift chooses not by race or origin, but by the strength of spirit. You have always been connected to it, Varia, even if you didn't know it. As the weight of her destiny settled over her, Varia steeled herself for what was to come. There was no turning back now. The crew, still struggling against the endless waves of mutated creatures, watched in disbelief as Varia stepped forward, her body glowing with the same power as the rift. Drace, his face pale, called out to her, "Commander, what the hell is happening?" Varia didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hands, channeling the energy of the rift through her, and the creatures paused mid-attack. The swirling vortex of green and black energy twisted and pulsed, reacting to her control. "We need to seal the rift," Varia said, her voice carrying over the chaos. "It's the only way to stop them." Kaelen stepped beside her, his own energy merging with hers. "The rift is a bridge between worlds, but it is unstable. If we don't close it, it will tear this world apart." As the rift pulsed, strange figures began to emerge from within, shadowy, otherworldly beings that had never been seen by human eyes. These were not the twisted mutants that had attacked them, but creatures of pure energy, beings from another dimension, drawn to the instability of the rift. The crew opened fire, but their weapons were useless against the spectral entities. The creatures moved through the ruins like phantoms, their forms constantly shifting as they advanced. Varia clenched her fists, feeling the power surge within her. "I'll seal the rift. You and the others hold them off." Drace, though clearly terrified, nodded. "You heard her. Everyone focus fire on those things. We need to buy her time." As the crew fought to hold off the advancing creatures, Varia stepped closer to the rift, her connection to the ancient power intensifying. She could feel the pull of the other world, beckoning her to cross over, to abandon this reality and embrace the unknown. But she fought against it, focusing on the energy she needed to contain. "Now, Varia," Kaelen urged. "Use the power of the rift to collapse the gateway." Summoning every ounce of strength, Varia raised her hands toward the rift. The energy crackled around her, wild and untamed, threatening to tear her apart. But she pushed through the pain, her body glowing brighter as she channeled the power into the vortex. The ground shook violently, and the creatures screamed as the rift began to collapse. The swirling energy tightened, shrinking inward as Varia forced the gateway closed. But the power was too great. Varia could feel herself slipping, the energy overwhelming her senses. The visions returned, flashes of other worlds, other lives. She was everywhere and nowhere, a part of the universe itself. Just as she felt herself being pulled into the void, Kaelen's hand grasped her shoulder. His energy merged with hers, stabilizing her connection to the rift. Together, they pushed the collapsing energy inward, sealing the gateway once and for all. With a final burst of light, the rift imploded, sending a shockwave across the ruins. The creatures vanished, their connection to the other dimensions severed, and the world fell silent once more. The collapse of the rift left behind a stillness that felt unnatural, as if the entire world had held its breath. Varia stood in the middle of the ruins, her body still tingling with the fading energy of the rift. The once vibrant glow around her skin now dimmed, but the connection to the ancient elderly power lingered in her mind like a distant echo. Kaelen was beside her, his hand still resting on her shoulder, though his eyes had returned to their normal hue. "It's over," he said softly, his voice filled with both relief and exhaustion. "The rift is sealed." But Varia wasn't sure if it was truly over. The visions had shown her more than just the war of the past. They had revealed an ongoing struggle, one that stretched far beyond the world of Calypsis. She could feel it in her bones, the tension of the universe, like a cord stretched too tightly, waiting to snap. Drace approached cautiously, his rifle still in hand. "Commander, are we safe now?" "For now," Varia answered, her voice steadier than she felt. "But the rift was just a gateway. There are other forces at play, ones we don't fully understand yet." Kaelen nodded in agreement. The Elderly left more than just a war behind. They left a legacy, one tied to the fabric of reality itself. The crew gathered, bruised and weary, but alive. The battle had taken its toll on all of them, but the true cost had yet to be revealed. As they regrouped, Varia felt a pang of uncertainty. What now? The rift had been closed, but the balance of power had shifted. The creatures may have been defeated, but the consequences of their actions would echo far into the future as the days passed. The ruins of Calypsis began to heal. The air, once thick with the smell of sulfur and decay, now carried a faint hint of new life. Plants began to sprout in the cracks of the shattered ground, and the sky, previously covered in dark clouds, cleared to reveal a brilliant expanse of stars. Varia and Kaelen spent their time overseeing the rebuilding efforts. The survivors of the battle, both human and mutated, worked together to restore what had been lost. The mutations, once seen as a curse, were now being studied and understood as part of a larger evolution. The line between human and mutant blurred, and with it, the possibility of unity. In the midst of all this, Varia found herself grappling with her newfound abilities. The power of the Elderly still coursed through her, though it was now dormant, waiting for her to tap into it once again. She could feel its presence, like a sleeping beast beneath her skin, and with it came the knowledge that she was no longer the same person she had been before the rift. Kaelen, too, had changed. His connection to the ancient race had deepened, and he often spoke of the Elderly's vision for the universe, a vision that went beyond simple survival. It was a vision of harmony between worlds, a balance that had been disrupted by the opening of the rift but could now be restored. "We're not just soldiers anymore," Kaelen told Varia one evening as they stood on the edge of the rebuilt city. "We're part of something bigger now. The Elderly's legacy is our responsibility." Varia nodded, though the weight of that responsibility was daunting. "But where do we start? There are so many unknowns, so many forces still out there." Kaelen smiled, his eyes full of hope. "We start here, with the people we've saved, and from there we rebuild." Just as peace seemed to settle over the land, strange occurrences began to unfold. Varia's dreams were filled with visions of shadowy figures watching from afar, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. These were not the creatures of the rift, but something older, something that had been waiting in the darkness for the right moment to strike. The first sign came when one of the mutated scouts vanished without a trace. Then another. Soon, rumors spread among the survivors of strange sightings in the distance. Figures that moved through the night like ghosts, leaving no tracks behind. Kaelen and Varia gathered the crew to investigate, though their numbers had dwindled since the battle. As they ventured into the wilderness beyond the city, they found evidence of something lurking just beyond their reach. Strange markings carved into the ground, unnatural formations in the trees, and an eerie silence that followed them wherever they went. It was Drace who discovered the first true sign of what they were dealing with. In the deep forest, hidden beneath layers of foliage, they found an ancient structure, buried for centuries. The architecture was unlike anything they had seen before, a fusion of organic and mechanical design, pulsating with a faint, otherworldly glow. "This wasn't built by the Elderly," Varia whispered as they explored the ruins. "This is something else entirely." Kaelen's expression darkened. "The Watchers," he said, his voice barely audible. "They've been waiting." Varia turned to him, her heart racing. "The Watchers? What are they?" Kaelen hesitated, his gaze locked on the glowing symbols etched into the walls. "They are the ones who observe the rise and fall of civilizations. The Elderly knew of them, but they were never able to make contact. They watch, but they do not interfere. Until now, the discovery of the Watcher's structure sent ripples of fear through the survivors. The city of Calypsis, though being rebuilt, now felt vulnerable. Varia stood atop one of the newly erected towers, gazing out at the horizon, where shadows seemed to dance in the fading light. "Do you think they're waiting for something?" Drace asked, joining her on the tower. His rifle was slung across his back, but his hand never strayed far from it, a habit developed in the constant state of alertness they now lived in. "They've always been waiting," Varia replied softly. "But for what, I don't know. The rift was closed, but I think it was just the beginning of something bigger." "Kaelen," who had been silent since their discovery of the Watcher's ruins, joined them. The Watchers don't act without reason. The elderly believed they were a force of balance, observing the rise and fall of worlds. If they're making themselves known now, it means something is shifting. Varia frowned. What if we're that shift? Kaelen didn't answer immediately. His eyes, now carrying a permanent glow from his deepened connection to the elderly, scanned the horizon. Perhaps, but we can't let fear paralyze us. The people need hope, and that starts with us. Days turned into weeks, and the tension grew. Strange sightings increased, and more scouts vanished. Varia, Kaelen, and the remaining crew were on high alert. They had fortified the city, but they all knew that if the Watchers decided to act, no walls would be enough to stop them. One night, as the city slept, Varia awoke with a start. The air felt different, charged with an energy she hadn't sensed before. She quickly grabbed her gear and rushed to the tower. Kaelen was already there, his eyes glowing brighter than she had ever seen. "They're here," he said simply. Varia's heart raced. "The Watchers?" Kaelen nodded. "They've come to observe, but not just us. They're watching something far bigger unfold." Before Varia could respond, a figure materialized out of the darkness. Tall and imposing, it was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its body shimmered with an ethereal glow, its eyes dark voids that seemed to swallow the light around them. "I am the Watcher," the figure spoke, its voice reverberating in their minds. "You have disturbed the balance." Varia stood her ground, though her heart pounded in her chest. "We closed the rift. We saved this world." The Watcher's gaze fell on her. "You saved this world, but you disrupted the balance of the universe. The elderly knew the cost of meddling with the fabric of time and space, and now you bear their burden." Kaelen stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" The Watcher's eyes glowed brighter. "A choice." Varia's breath caught in her throat. "What choice?" The Watcher raised its hand, and the air around them shimmered, revealing two paths. In one, Varia saw Calypsis thriving, the people united, but the universe beyond falling into chaos. In the other, she saw Calypsis destroyed, but the balance of the universe restored. "Your actions here have created a divergence," the Watcher explained. "The universe demands balance, and you must decide which path it will take." Varia's mind raced. The weight of the decision pressed down on her. "There's no way to save both?" The Watcher's gaze was unwavering. "Balance must be restored." Varia stood on the edge of the ruins, Kaelen beside her. The Watcher had disappeared, leaving them with the impossible choice. The fate of their world, and perhaps the entire universe, rested in their hands. "We can't let the universe fall into chaos," Kaelen said, his voice steady, though Varia could hear the tension beneath it. "We've seen what happens when balance is broken." "But Calypsis," Varia whispered. "These people are people." Kaelen turned to her, his glowing eyes softening. "We've fought so hard to save them, but we've always known that some sacrifices are inevitable." Varia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision in her chest. She had always been a protector, a leader, someone who put others before herself. But this was a decision no one should ever have to make. Finally, she opened her eyes and turned to Kaelen. "We restore the balance." Kaelen nodded, though his heart ached with the decision. "We restore the balance." As the dawn broke over the horizon, Varia felt a strange sense of peace. The Watcher's presence lingered in the air, but she knew they had made the right choice. Calypsis would fall, but the universe would endure. And with that thought, she knew they had fulfilled their purpose.